So, okay, I'm really thrilled to be here with you guys today in Berlin. It's actually the first time that I'm here doing a meetup in the Berlin ecosystem. I've done a few in Paris, I've done a few in London. As Mathieu told you, these are the cities where we are active as the family at the moment. But great to see all those people and those faces here, the energy of the startups here in the Berlin local scene. What I want you guys to do today is to put yourselves in the shoes of an investor, because you will understand way more precisely what I'm going to talk about, because what I'm going to talk about is a pitch. There are very few skills as an entrepreneur that you can claim that you have earned and acquired once and for all, because most of what you will do as an entrepreneur is learn every day new skills and try to navigate the different kind of issues that you will face, which means that you'll have to learn and make mistakes and learn and make mistakes all the time. Well, pitching isn't one of those skills that you'll have to learn and relearn, because pitching is something that can be mastered, and it's something that is actually quite simple when you know how to do it properly. So there are just a few rules and a few things that you need to master an actual good pitch, and this is what we are going to cover today. So Mathieu already told you what we do at TheFamily, so what I'm going to tell you is what I do personally at TheFamily. My job at TheFamily is to meet with the entrepreneurs that we're going to work with and try and understand if we'd like them to join the family and see how we can actually work together. Which means that my job is basically being on the receiving end of a pitch every single day. So in most cases, it's a one-on-one session with an entrepreneur that will tell me about his business and what he's building and what he wants to build with his company. But it's also at networking events when someone has just give me one sentence about what he's building. It's also a lot of pitch contests where I'm either in a jury or in the audience. So I see a really great number of pitches every day, and this kind of always make me reflect on. I always can tell if someone's a good entrepreneur from the way they pitch, because the best entrepreneurs, they know that this is a skill to master, and they've done the work to actually master their pitch. So this is what I realized working at TheFamily. I'm based in London, by the way, but I work in Paris and Berlin quite often, so I have like this sort of vision on what's going on in all three ecosystems. So just to tell you a bit about what I'm going to talk about today, I'll start by giving you a few general comments on a pitch and what situation you have to pitch and who you're going to pitch. Then I'll move on to the structure of a good investor pitch. So give you the different key elements that an investor is waiting for you to mention when you're doing a pitch. And then after that, I'll tell you about the attitude that you need to have when you're pitching an investor. And then at the end, I'm happy to take all of your questions and to answer to whatever question you may have. So yeah, let's dive into that. The first thing that you need to understand is a pitch is not just a situation where you're on stage and you're talking about your company. Basically, what I like to tell entrepreneurs is that you're always in a pitching mode when you're talking about your company. The reason why is because pitching is just simply telling somebody else what your company does. And it doesn't really matter the situation. It doesn't really matter the context. When you're telling someone about what your company does, you're basically pitching them in one way or another. Or at least you should be pitching them. The only people that you actually do not pitch are your co-founders, because they deserve to have the actual truth about what's going on in the company, and you need to discuss and navigate the actual issues that are happening. But otherwise, whenever you're talking to a company, you're talking to a board member, you're talking to the press, you're talking to an investor, you're talking to a client, you're pitching in one way or another. You're talking to a friend about your company, you're also pitching them. And I'll tell you why. So as a matter of fact, it's not only the investors that you're pitching. you can be pitching your clients. And if you're pitching a client, then you have different objectives and goals in mind. Your objective is obviously that they use your product or they use your service, that they buy it, or that they refer it to a friend or to someone they know for whom it will make sense to use your product. So let's say you're building something that's B2B, and you're pitching someone who just doesn't give a shit about this because they're just a consumer. Well, they might be thinking about someone who's building a startup and who might actually have to use your product. So you want to pitch them in that way so that they refer it to their friends. So that's how you pitch clients. If you also pitch your employees and your future recruits. Your employees is very simple. You want to keep them aligned with the mission. Usually when you're building a company, you don't have a lot of money to pay your employees. It's complicated for them to take it upon themselves to be less paid than they could be at any other corporate job. And so you want them to remain aligned with the mission that you have. And one way to make them align with the mission that you have is to pitch them your vision of the company, is to pitch them what they are working for at the moment. Is you want to present it to them in a really in a way that will make them understand what you're trying to achieve and what's in it for them working so hard for your company. You also want to pitch your future recruits very simply because your future recruits you don't want them to work for any other competitor. You want them to join your company. And so you have to sell them your company in a way so that they join you and not someone else. Obviously, you pitch the investors because you're looking for their money and you're looking for their support and you're looking for their advice and you're looking for their network as well. So this is the most obvious situations. And eventually you also pitch your friends and family. You pitch your girlfriend when you start a company so that she doesn't think that you're crazy building this. You pitch your parents for the same reason. It's basically you have to tell them that, okay, this is okay that I'm an entrepreneur. This is what I'm doing for my life, and you have to accept it. So it's a way of pitching your company as well. It's really important to have this goal and objective in mind whenever you're pitching, because you never actually pitch just for the sake of it. I see a lot of entrepreneurs actually going to pitch contests and not really knowing what they want to get out of it. Well, it's just to practice, or I was given the opportunity to be part of a contest of pitching and I won, by the way. Well, what's in it for you? Like, why did you go to this specific pitch contest? What was your objective? What was your goal of pitching your company at that event? Well, actually, I don't know. I won the contest. Yeah, but you didn't manage to get new clients. You didn't manage to get new investors. So it was just bullshit. And this is important. Whenever you're pitching someone, you should always have the goal and the objective in mind, just so that whatever you're going to say will go in that direction of achieving that goal. Otherwise, it just does not make sense and you're wasting time. And time is your most precious resource as an entrepreneur. So you don't want to waste it. Perhaps the last general comment that there is to make about pitching is that you have to tell a story. You have to tell a story that is compelling to your audience so that they want to listen to you and so that they'll be with you and they'll flow with you all the way throughout your pitch. And I believe there are two reasons why you should tell a compelling story to your audience. First of all, is because people will listen to you. Because imagine you're at a pitch contest, you only have 5 minutes and there are 10 other people waiting to pitch just like you are. If you lose the attention of one person and you're not telling them a story, then they'll just be looking at their phone for the next 3 minutes, and then that's it. You just lost them forever, because they will not go back into whatever slide you're showing them unless you're telling a story that they want to follow and that they want to listen to. So telling a story has that power. But the second power that telling a story has is also making them remember what you said. Imagine you have 10 different people pitching you, but one with a really compelling story that you remember about. You know, this really cool guy that built a product that will solve, I don't know what, all the problems of people who have afro haircuts. And he told you all of this story about his little sister growing up, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, you remember it. And you don't remember the 9 other companies that you saw because their pitch was bullshit, because they weren't telling you a story. Basically, one advice that I often tell entrepreneurs when they're going to a pitch event is that they're like movie directors. They know what's going on behind the set of their companies. They know what's happening actually in the company, but they have to present it in a way that will make it look sexy, and they have to put the pieces together to make their company look sexy and to tell a story out of it that will make people want to either invest or use the product or use the service or be on board with the mission. So this is precisely what a movie director does. It's not about telling lies about your company. It's about making the truth look sexy. If you look at that slide, there are burgers. They're shiny and you want to grab a bite of them, but actually they're just greasy, disgusting McDonald's burger. So this is what it is about storytelling. It's like making it look sexy. Next up, just put yourselves in the shoes of investors and imagine that you have entrepreneurs in front of you telling them their company, and imagine what you would like to hear and what are the different elements that you want to hear in an entrepreneur pitching you. The first thing that you want to hear when an entrepreneur is pitching you is an opener. You don't want people to directly dive into what they're doing. You just want one sentence to put you in the context of what they're going to talk about. Just like when I started. Okay, today we're going to talk about what's a good pitch. So now you know what this will be about, and you can expect me to talk about different lots of stuff, but it will always be connected somehow to pitching. Well, it's the same for an investor in a pitching contest. When you only have 5 minutes to grab their attention, they just want one sentence for you to open and for you to tell them what you're building. Now, there are good openers and there are bad openers. Bad opener is if you tell, we're building a product so that people can live cool experiences. Are you selling travels? Are you selling restaurants? Are you selling sex toys? I mean, all of this actually applies to live good experiences. A good opener is specific, is simple, and is easily understandable by everyone. Specific is really important here. It has to only define your company and your company only. We have a company in our portfolio that we actually sold. That's called Captain Train. And what they were doing was really simple. So I'm just going to give you their opener. Hi everyone, my name is Jean-Daniel. We're building a platform for you to book and buy cheap train tickets in Europe. That's specific, that's simple, and everyone can understand what they're doing. This is just one sentence, but it really tells it all, and you can expect everything that they will say afterwards to be connected to this. Now, a few don'ts after that. You're never the Airbnb of X or the Uber of blah, 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 or whatever. You should have one sentence that is at least so specific to your company that you can tell it that way. And it's just like embrace what your company does, and you don't have to refer to any other company. And we actually have I have a lot of entrepreneurs telling me, yeah, I'm basically like the Airbnb, but for dogs. This is true, by the way. And this is not the way you pitch your company. You're an Airbnb for dogs. Well, basically, you're a marketplace for people to find dog sitters easily. This is the same thing. You just said it in the sentence where you embrace what your company does and you make it specific. The second don't, I believe, is probably never saying that you're the best, the unique, the cheapest, the first. because if you want me to believe this, then you have to prove it. You don't have to state it just like that, because that's a bold statement. And sure, if you're Steve Jobs, you can say this is the best phone ever. But if you're not building the iPhone, then don't state that you're the best. Just prove it when you're pitching. Now, afterwards, the second thing that you will talk about is the problem. There's this fallacious belief that people have about entrepreneurship, that an entrepreneur is someone who has an idea and who builds this idea. Well, actually, 99% of startups actually build solutions to problems. So the first thing that you want to pitch is to pitch your problem. Pitching your problem is really important, whether you're in a niche market or a really large market, but it's actually even more important if you're tackling a niche. If 90% of the people in the room cannot relate to what you're building, let's take the example that I had before of Afro haircut, or probably not many of you are concerned by this problem. But if you can pitch it in a way that says 90% of people with Afro haircut have trouble finding a good hairdresser for this and this reason, and if you make it obvious that there's a pain, well, myself as an investor, what I'm going to think is that, okay, there's something that is huge, that is painful, that people do not have a solution to yet, so there will probably be people that will be willing to pay for a solution to this service. So I'm starting to think, okay, how is he going to tackle that problem and that problem and that problem? Because that problem is obvious, and you're engaging me as a person in your company, but you're also telling me that there are people that will be willing to pay for a solution for this service. So pitching your problem in the right way and making it obvious that there's a problem and an issue that you're going to solve is important. After that, obviously you have, yep. Yeah. That's a really good question. The question was, is the problem statement a good place to start your storytelling? I believe that's actually the precise moment when you have to start storytelling. So the way you want to pitch your problem is not just 90% of people with Afro haircuts have problem getting a hairdresser. It's more like, well, if you're directly concerned, it's like, all my life I've had trouble finding a hairdresser. I went there, I couldn't find one. And you make it lively. You make people relate to this. So it is the actual moment when having your storytelling right is important. Someone else? No? Okay. So moving on. Once you've pitched the problem, obviously you want to pitch the solution. But what an investor is waiting for is for your solution to be built directly in connection with the problems that you face. So every feature that you will present in your solution should be the answer to a specific problem that you presented. If you're having additional features or things that are cool, that's nice, but it's not in direct connection to the problem that you pitched. So what you should present is the features that will be the direct answer to whatever you presented before as the main problem. Additional features are really nice, and you can keep them in your pocket and sprinkle them around your pitch wherever after. But it's really important to have that sort of like logical connection between problem A, problem B, problem C, solution A, solution B, solution C. I'm building this because this on the market. And it shows that you know what you're building, what you're going after, what you're tackling, and you're doing it really precisely. But obviously your investors are like St. Thomas. You can tell them everything that you want about your solution, about how great it is, about how cool it is. It's really awesome. We have this feature and this feature and this feature. But they want to see it. They want you to show it, and they won't believe you until you show them what you build. And this is when you get sneaky, because one advice that I have for you is never, ever, ever, ever do live demos or actually that's true in 99.9% of the cases. Live demos are bound to fuck up because you're going to try and launch your first of all, you have to plug your iPhone to whatever cable is there. You don't know which is the right cable. Is it directly linked to the screen? So you have to turn your back to the audience to see what's actually happening. Oh no, it's not actually right there. But wait, it actually worked when we rehearsed. I promise you it's going to be great. Just wait for a moment. And this is awkward. This is awkward for you. This is awkward for the people listening to you. And you don't want to create that sort of emotion in your investors. You want to be really able to tell whatever story you're telling and to showcase whatever you want to showcase. So live demos are really complicated unless you've rehearsed so many times and you're so sure that it's going to be great and amazing that you're willing to take the risk to do it because it pays off. We had this company in our portfolio called Talk. And Talk was basically doing on-demand delivery of any item that you'd like in Paris in less than 45 minutes. So that's a bold statement. And at the beginning of any pitch, actually not during pitch contests, but like one-on-one investor meetings, the CEO, Serge, would just order a bottle of champagne, go on for the 45 minutes of his pitch, and at the end, when he finished, the guy would show up with a bottle of champagne. So this is risk taking, but it was really amazing because the investor was like directly convinced that the thing was amazing because he could see. But Serge, he rehearsed so many times and he was so sure that he had 10 available drivers plus 10 available bottles of champagne when he started to pitch that he was willing to take that risk. And if you're not willing to take that risk, or if you haven't rehearsed enough, just don't do live demos. The second thing that you can do is to have a video. Now there are two kinds of videos, the great videos and the lame videos. And most videos that you have in entrepreneur, when an entrepreneur is doing a pitch, are lame videos, just like shaky, blurry, bad lit, bad sound, and you're just there in the audience waiting for it to finish because this is awkward. And I'm sure you can relate if you've seen a couple of entrepreneurs actually showing what they're building in a video. But if you're doing a great video, something that goes viral, it can just make your whole company take off really quickly. So this is probably the best example. That's the example of Dollar Shave Club. I'm sure you've all seen the video, or most of you at least have seen the video. And they've basically built their whole company on one really viral marketing video. They started to get users like that. They grew and they grew and they grew because people knew them after they released this video. And they were bought last year by Unilever for, I think, $1 billion. So if you're going to show a video to your investor, or if you're going to show a video to your clients, make sure that it's great, that it's funny, that it's different, original, and that you can have something that goes viral. Just don't do a video for the sake of the video. Which leads me to my last advice, which is the advice that most of you should take. Do UX demos. UX demos are simply screenshots or screen recordings of what goes on in your product or in your service. If you want to show an investor that you have feature A and feature B and feature C, and that it's all easy to access on your website, well, then you simply screen record, you click the different buttons, and you know what will happen at what time. And while you are speaking, you can say, okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to click this button, and you know precisely what will happen. Nothing will fuck up because you have seen the video at least a couple times. You have your own cues of what will happen, and nothing will go wrong. And it's basically the same if you have just a screenshot. You can show them whatever you want. And as a matter of fact, that's why I said you get to get sneaky. Your investors want to see that you built this. Well, you can make them think that you built something while actually you're still working on it. This is what we call fake it till you make it. It's basically you show them a screenshot of something that looks really good. You're not there yet, but this is your vision of the product. And that's what you have to show them. You're showing them a vision. You're pitching. You're not selling now. They're not in the process of due diligence. You're making it look sexy. Next up, an investor wants to hear about your target market. Who are your customers? How are you going to reach them? Who are they? How do they act? Where do you find them? So there are two things about your targets. You want to give them qualitative features. So my target market is teenagers, so 13 to 18, or students. But there are also quantitative. Investors like to hear figures about the market. But for instance, if you're building something for students, don't say there are 200 million students in Europe. I'm tackling this market. Because it's bullshit. You're not tackling the whole student market. What you want to say is to give the actual size of your market and to give the investor more color about what you're actually going to achieve and what you're going to target. So you want to tell them about the addressable market. And the way you do this is you say there are 200 million students in Europe. We believe that 10% of them would be concerned by our solution, so that's 20 million. And out of those 20 million, we believe that we can easily target 5%. During the first 3 years of development. So that's 1 million potential students, where we fairly believe that we'll have a 50% market share. So that's 500,000 students. That's your address. That's your market. Because if you boldly state that you will have 200 million students on your platform directly, an investor will just think that you're crazy and that you're delusional about your business. And they probably won't invest in you. After that, you have to mention your ecosystem. Ecosystem means competition, whatever competitive environment you're part of. So please don't do a matrix where there's an x-axis and a y-axis. And I don't know what feature you have to find so that you're up there. And Google is there and Facebook is there. Because that's bullshit. If you're in a competitive environment where you have Google and Facebook as competitors, any investor will know that you will probably get crushed. So what you want to do is to be really precise about what's really going on the market, who the stakeholders are, and what your actual position is. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're tackling cloud call centers. You see a lot of those recently. So in the cloud call center market, there are people targeting the enterprise market. So people like Oracle, SAP, Citrix, like really large companies. And then there are people tackling the SMB market. So enterprise, SMB. And within SMBs, you have inbound call centers, outbound call centers, and unified call centers. Now, let's say that you're building an inbound call center. I don't care that you have a lot of competitors. I don't care that there are people doing the enterprise and doing the unified and doing the outbound. What I want to understand as an investor is why you're going to be the best in inbound call centers. But you have to be transparent about that because it shows that you understand the way the market is shaped, you understand the different forces in place, and you understand where you're going to build something that's so amazing that people will go for your solution and not the rest. It's not about showing that you're on top right and that everyone else is somewhere else because you probably picked the wrong features to be on top right. And all of this because the next thing that an investor is waiting for is your secret sauce. What makes you special? What makes you different than all of your competitors? And what is it in you that will make naturally crush the competition? I'll give you a really good example. We have this company in our portfolio that's called Omixi, and they're doing on-demand health checkup and they're fully comprehensive. So basically what they do is they test your DNA, they test your metabolome, they test your microbiome. This is like the bacteria and fungus in your stomach, and they test a lot of different markers in your stool, your saliva, your urine. So they get the full picture of your body, and then they do the analysis, and they're able to tell you, well, you have 90% chance of having whatever kind of disease, or this is you're genetically predisposed to having this and this and that. And the secret sauce that they have is that they have a team of 12 PhDs, all experts in biotech, which makes a clear difference on the market for all of their competitors that do not have a team of 12 PhDs experts in biotech. And the second secret sauce that they have is that they're operating in the UK, and in the UK they're the only player that's approved by the CQC, which is the Care and Quality Commission, which is like basically the FDA in the UK, and they're the body that regulate everything that happens in a medical space. And it takes 1 to 2 years of procedures and administrative stuff to actually get approved by the CQC. So team of 12 PhDs, CQC approved, makes them really ahead of their competition. And it doesn't matter that they have a lot of players in the same ecosystem. Because they have this, we believe that they will be the best on the market and that they will succeed. So this is what an investor is waiting for. What makes you special and what makes you different. After that, what you want to talk about is your business model. So this is where things get tricky. A lot of entrepreneurs think that their business model is just telling about their pricing. So I'm doing this, I'm selling it 20 euros per month. That's not a business model. Let's take the example of WeWork. Everybody knows WeWork. They're doing co-working spaces. The actual business model of WeWork is not saying that, yeah, we're renting out spaces for 600 euros per month. What they're doing is like they leverage their brand. They partner up with real estate investment firms that buy an asset, so a building. WeWork operates this asset for lower rent than they would pay anywhere else. By leveraging the brand that WeWork has, the value of the asset increases, meaning because there are shops that will open and restaurants and people will start thinking this is a cool neighborhood because there's a WeWork, the building value will increase and the real estate owners will make a huge return on investment when they exit a few years after. That's the business model of WeWork. They get lower rent because they have a brand, and they sell it to real estate investment firms. And that's where they actually make the money, not out of the rents every month. They make the money out of the difference between their rent and the rent that they charge to people. So it's a two-sided business model. That's what an investor wants to understand. It's not just your pricing. We don't really care about your pricing. Could be higher, could be lower. What we want to understand is what makes the value of your company, what makes it different in terms of business model, and how you're actually creating a capturing value. After that, you have to talk about your distribution. You may have a really great business model, but we want to understand how you're tackling the sales and how you're chasing your targets. Well, let me give you this example. I was mentioning students earlier. So we have this company that's called Peter, and they're doing a chatbot for students to receive school support. So they basically go on Messenger, and whatever type of question they have about math, about history, geography, they can ask to Peter, the chatbot, and Peter will answer. What they did, which was really smart in a way, is there was a waiting list for Peter. And if you shared the page of Peter with 2 of your friends and that they liked, you'd get 10 places higher in the waiting list. Well, guess what? In 1 month, December 2016, they went from 2,000 users to 300,000 users. So that's growth, and that's how they tackle the distribution. They had sort of like had this really great referral program that worked super well. This is what you talk about in terms of distribution. So of course, it doesn't always work like this, but you have to have a really clear sales funnel, acquisition funnel, and to be really clear about how you want to tackle your sales and your market. After that, investors want to hear about your traction. This is actually the only thing that they care about. You can be really lame everywhere else. If you're great here, the investor will still like you. So keep hope. Traction is like really the king of all reasons for an investor to invest. If you have traction, then it's obvious that clients like you, and it's obvious that you're onto something. But we need to define traction. Traction is about having one key metric that is relevant to your business, that is so amazingly growing and developing that it's unseen before. It's out of the market. It's not just about saying, okay, so at the moment we have 2,000 signups. How does that compare to your competitors? How does that compare to the previous month? How does that compare to whatever other company that's similar to you? Also, what's the retention on those users? So how many of them keep coming every week and are still using your product? And oh, by the way, what about the cohorts? So people who signed up 24 weeks ago, are they still active? And the people who signed up last week, are they still active as well? These are all the things that you want to take care of, and you want to give flavor to the investor about what's going on in your company. So it's not just giving KPIs, it's giving the evolution of those KPIs. And it's really feasible in a 5-minute pitch. So you can say, well, at the moment we have 2,000 signups, that's growing 30% week on week. We have 75% retention after 3 weeks. So you tackled the KPI itself, the growth, the retention, and the cohorts. Obviously, you're still making it look sexy. So you pick the best KPIs out of it to make your investor interested in talking to you and to having a meeting with you. But you have to be transparent about this. Next up, investor want to hear about your team. That's when it get really funny. So I don't know how it actually works here in Berlin, but usually in the UK or in France, entrepreneurs love to talk about their titles, and they will love to talk about whatever school they graduated from. So we all graduated from HEC, or we all graduated from Oxford. I don't really care. What's difference does that actually make on what you're building? What investors like that you talk about when you talk about your team is your expertise and your experience. And these are slightly different. Your expertise is like if you're building something in the insurtech business, so you're building something in the field of the insurance, at least someone in the team has worked in that business before, meaning that they know what it's like to work in that business. They know the players, they know the market, they know the figures, and they know what works and what doesn't work. So they have the sectorial industrial expertise, and they don't have to learn it by working in the field. And the second thing is the experience. What I call experience is entrepreneurial experience. Have you worked at a startup before? Have you started a startup before? How did it go? Did you sell it? Did you fail? What did you learn from that experience? This is what we call experience. And the more you have been in a startup world, the more you're likely to succeed, because you've seen a lot of things fail. You've seen some things succeed. And this makes the whole difference, and especially to an investor, because he will be more likely to believe you when you say, we're going to achieve this, if you've actually been working in a startup that achieved this or that didn't achieve this because, whereas you're just a first-time entrepreneur and you don't really have a sense of what it will take for you to achieve something. So experience and expertise are the only two things that really matter in the eyes of an investor. Or actually, if an investor cares about something else, then it means that he's a bad investor. After that, you want to talk about your timeline. So your timeline goes both ways. Don't forget that you have your objective in mind, that is making this guy invest, or at least if you're pitching in a contest, you want this guy to ask for a meeting. And one reason why he will allow you to have a meeting, a sitting with him, and to listen more about your company is because he trusts you. And he has to trust you because you have already achieved something and because you have a vision and a plan to achieve something else. So this is why the timeline goes both ways. You want to tell them, okay, so we started 6 months ago, we built this, we learned this about the MVP, and now this is where we are. What we're looking to do for the next 18 months is to hire 6 people to take care of the sales. We want to build the second feature of the product, so that will be version 2. And we want to be there in terms of number of signups in 18 months. So give them a clear sense of your timeline. We'll make it rational, make it logic, and we'll actually make them want to talk to you about this plan and about what they can achieve, what you can achieve with their money and with their support and with their help. So it's really important to be precise here. What you want to finish with is your end game. You started off with a problem. You need to have a clear vision of what you're going to build that is going to solve this problem. Still the same thing. You're building a marketplace for people to find Afro hairdressers. Well, you want to be the global reference of Afro hairdressers, plus to sell other products that are related to people having those problems, and to become the monopoly and the leader of e-commerce in the African world. I don't know. You have to refine your vision. This is probably bullshit what I'm saying, but you need to have huge ambition, and this doesn't clash with being delusional or whatever, because you have a clear timeline and a clear path going forward, but you also have an ambition and a vision, and this is what you're going after, and this is what you will achieve step by step. And this shows an investor that you're ambitious and that you're bold and that you want to achieve something big. So this is great. Thanks. The thing that you have to do at the end is to wrap up. So never finish your pitch by, okay, that's it, guys, thank you, and stop there. You have an objective, well, just state it. Okay, so this was my company. We're currently looking for investment. So if you're interested in talking to me, I'll be the drinks afterwards. Or if you just want to contact me, here's my email. Thank you. That's really simple, but it makes the whole difference because you put it in their mind to actually talk to you and to call you and to make the extra effort of doing something. You know, if you're an entrepreneur, you probably heard of landing pages, and in a landing page, you need a call to action. Well, actually, in the pitch, it's the same. You need a call to action, and this is when you wrap up. You just basically tell the people listening to you. You tell your audience, this is what I'm waiting for. This is what I want you to do, and you will have higher conversion rate if you do this than if you don't. And obviously, the last thing to mention is the attitude that you need to have when you're pitching. A pitch is an oral performance, so you're on stage, you're talking to an audience, and it comes with a lot of implications. The first of those implications is that there's no space for hesitation. You have to know what you're saying by heart. You only have 5 or 10 minutes to convince someone, and so any sort of spontaneity or whatever you will make to feel lively. You have to fake. You actually have to know your pitch by heart, so that you don't make mistakes, so that you know precisely what you're telling, so that you know what information you're going to give in a limited time of space. So it takes some practice. The second implication that this has is that you want it to be clear, concise, and coherent. Since if you're going in all different directions, if you forget something about slide number 2 and you go back to it, oh, by the way, forgot to mention blah blah blah, and then you go back to whatever slide you were on, you will just lose people. So make it clear, make it really easily understandable, and this is, by the way, really important if you're building something that's complex. I don't know if you're a software engineer and you're building a product for developers. Just know that approximately 100% of the investors in front of you have business backgrounds and they have no fucking clue what you're talking about. So you're speaking to them in Spanish. So if you're speaking to them in Spanish, just at least make it slow so that they can relate to something that they understand. Make it easy, use images to make it understandable, make it concise, and know what information you're going to give. And perhaps the third implication is that remain flexible and just roll with the flow. The reason why you have to know your pitch by heart is not just to recite it like a parrot, is because if you feel that an extra information is needed, or if you feel that you have to add in something, or if you feel that you have to skip through one slide, you can do it and still fall back on your feet when you move on to the next slide, because you exactly know what you have to say about this one, because you know it by heart. So that's the implication of an oral performance. All of this means that it has to look simple and has to look obvious to the investor. Logic has to, the investor wants to follow you from end to beginning, but this is something that's actually really difficult to achieve. It's really difficult to make something look simple. And what it takes is practice. Practice. And you have to rehearse your pitch in front of your mirror. You have to rehearse your pitch in front of your friends, of your parents, of your significant others, in front of your co-founders, in front of whomever you can find to give you feedback. Actually, if you can find an investor and pitch them just for the sake of it, that's the best thing. But probably they won't have time to help you, but you can still try. But the more you rehearse, the more it will be easy to you, because you're always basically saying the same thing. And if you have opposition, and if you have questions or people that didn't understand one thing, then they'll tell you. And the more you practice and the more you rehearse, the more obvious it will be. And this is why I said in the beginning, this is something that you can acquire, because once you've done all of this homework and you know where people lose you or lose the focus, then you just correct this and you're always great at pitching. So this is about doing your homework and practicing your pitch up to the point that it's so perfect that you can improvise and that you can add in details, and you can still exactly know your story and know your objective and go for it. And this is really obvious when you listen to a lot of entrepreneurs. Sometimes you just sit in your chair and you listen to them and they're going in their pitch, and whatever question you can think of, they already answered. And that's when you say, okay, this is a guy that practices pitch. That's really amazing. He's probably a great entrepreneur because he has done all of this work. The last thing that's also important is the material that you're going to use, the slides. So I don't know if you've taken great care at the slides that I used today, but they have two commonalities. They're a bit unusual, and they're also they do not have a great number of words on them. So that's important. You've probably seen a lot of presentations where the guy has basically 2 charts and 3 bullet points, and it's just reading out loud whatever is written on the slide. So if you're going to do this, just send me the fucking slides by emails. I can probably read faster than you. And so you will save us both time. The slides are not meant for the presenter. The slides are meant for the audience. It's a visual support of what you're saying. It's just to give a cue of the moment where you're at in the presentation, and so that people can relate to what you're saying at the moment. Second thing about those slides is that they're unusual. All of this is sort of part of the culture of the family. So the pineapple, you can see there's, well, I don't actually know the Berlin office, but there are probably pineapples somewhere. But that's part of the company culture at the family, and this is what we want to reflect on our slides, because we want our culture to be obvious. And it's basically the same with your slides. They should reflect whatever kind of culture and identity your company has. So if you're building software, protection software against web attacks, against viruses, then you probably want something that is square, that is black and white, that shows strength, and that makes you look actually something safe. If you're building something for children, like a software to learn how to read, you want it to be colorful and bubbly and joyful, and you want your slides to look that way, because the visual part of what you're going to do is almost as important as what you're going to say, because that's what people look at. Well, I believe that's it about how you can actually make a good pitch. These are all the elements. Keep in mind that this is something that's obviously flexible, that you have to adapt to your own situation. But if you're building a company that's great and that you want to pitch and show me all of what you've learned today, feel free to drop me an email at younes@thefamily.co, and I'll be really happy to talk with you. And I'm also really happy to take whatever question that you have. Thank you. Anybody has questions? Yeah.
So, because you said that pitching is not only on the content, but also when you, for example, talk to your friends. And a friend of mine said that one of the greatest advice about pitching he got in the whole.
It was a long question, but I'll try to sum it up. You don't want to sound like a parrot when you're pitching, especially to your friends and your family. And to keep telling about your company like it's your own baby. Well, actually it is. I think it depends on the context. Personally, when I say always be pitching, it means always be pitching when you're talking about your company. If you're going to talk about your company, then do it in the right way. But you don't necessarily have to do it all the time. And precisely when you're with your friends and your family, only try to mention it when it makes sense. If you're having quality time, then it's important not to be in the pitching mode, but to talk about anything but your company. Still, if you're doing this, be pitching and get the feedback from your friends. If they want to sit down, I did this just yesterday, because also I do this professionally, but I was in Paris, and one friend that I hadn't seen in a long time told me, I'm building a company. I'd like to have your advice. We went to have lunch. We discussed for half an hour what was going on in our own personal lives. And then for half an hour, she was in a pitching mode, telling me stuff about her company, and I was in the receiving end, giving her feedback. You want to make it clear that there's a separation between those moments, but if you're doing it, then do it the right way. That's my advice. Yes? Okay, when you have a startup where the beneficiary is not the same as your user. Yeah. I think it all depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to the beneficiary, then pitch the beneficiary. If you're talking to the customer, then pitch the customer. And if you're talking to an investor, expect that they be able to tell the difference. So just make it clear in their mind that my targets and the people that will use this are blah, blah, blah. But actually, in your business model, you can add in a slide and say, but the real customers and the people that will pay for it are those people. And an investor, like any good investor, is able to make the difference and to understand how you jump from one to another. And if they're not, you don't want their money actually. So just make it really clear, balance the information, but realize that it's important that you have both parties in mind as an investor. So if you're telling me, let's say my target is the teenagers, so 13 to 18, but they're not the ones that are going to pay. The ones that are going to pay are their parents. So here's what I'm going to do about it. My business model or my distribution is actually, I'm targeting the teenagers and I'm leveraging them into asking their parents to pay for it. Which, by the way, doesn't work. But I'm targeting the parents in that way, and that way, and that way. I'm sending emails, flyers, blah, blah, blah. And any investor is perfectly capable of understanding what's the difference is. It's just about being clear and it's the clearer it is in your mind, the clearer you explain it, the better everyone understands, and the more logic it makes. So every startup faces difficulties when you're pitching. How do you present that, and how do you shine a positive light on whatever difficulty you're facing at the moment? Well, the kind of sneaky advice that I would give is just don't present it, because it depends on the context. Again, if you're in a pitch contest and you only have 5 minutes to make your company look good, don't say we're struggling at the moment to acquire customers. Because it makes you look bad. What you want to have is a one-on-one sitting with an investor, and this guy will ask you questions, and it's his job to ask those questions, like, where are you at the moment with the customer acquisition? And that's when you say, well, actually, I'm struggling, but always present it in a way where you have ideas, and you have you need to have ideas about what you're going to make about the problem that you're facing at the moment. So exactly, you have to have a plan. So if you're saying something negative about your company, you have to be doing something that will make it better. Because if you're not, it means that, okay, I'm having this problem. What are you doing about it? Nothing. Okay, thanks. Here's the door. You have to always be reactive or actually proactive to whatever issues or struggle you're facing. But then again, if in a 5-minute pitch, you just don't mention it. If you're sitting down with an investor and he's asking the precise question that will make you sort of like have to answer, then answer it, but with a good answer. And a good answer is, I'm doing this and this at the moment. That will make it better. Yes. I'd say not all of the pitch formats are actually adapted. I'm really often invited to pitch contests as a jury. I really hate it when it's like elevator pitch, because you don't learn anything about a company in an elevator pitch. And if you like, you can learn pretty much the same thing in one sentence. So you should just do one sentence and then we go faster, or you should do 5 minutes and then we actually learn something about the company. So not all the formats are actually adapted to the pitch, and it depends on the people who are inviting you and what the context is. Now, to actually answer your question, what is the best format? I believe is 5 to 10 minutes. 5 is a bit short sometimes to cover all of the topics, and 10 is a bit long to remain relevant and to remain coherent, to keep the flow going. So probably something like 7 minutes would be the optimal timing for a pitch contest. I've actually never seen 7 minutes pitch contest, so I probably have to go with 5. Just keep something. It's 5 plus 4 minutes Q&A. 5 plus 4 minutes Q&A is amazing because you can just mention things, and if you have something that's actually interested by what you're saying, they'll come back to what you said and what you mentioned and say, okay, you mentioned this. I'm actually interested. How does that work? Or how are you going to do this? And this is the rest of your pitch. You have to give hints in your pitch that there is something that you cannot mention because you do not have the time, and you want to sort of like get people to ask questions about this. And even if you don't have Q&As afterwards, people will say, well, fuck, he mentioned this. I have to learn more. I'll send him an email. And this is what you're after. This is your objective, actually, when you're pitching, to create the conversion, to create the meeting. So in both cases, if you do not have the space to fit everything that you want to say, just give hints and wait that people are so interested about what you're hiding that they have to call you. Yes. It is, but it's risky because you take the risk of being alone. When you're doing a client pitch, it doesn't really matter because there's probably someone relating to what you're saying, but just know that investors are like a very homogeneous group of people. So if you're selling hair dryers and you're talking to investors, you're probably not talking to a lot of female, unfortunately. This is a problem, by the way, but it's just you have a bunch of guys in front of you and they don't use hair dryers. So do it when it makes sense regarding the audience that you have. Yep. No, this is not compelling. You want... telling a story is about making people relate to what you're saying and giving them an image that will be easy to understand and to follow. But you don't want to get too personal or to make things awkward. Awkward is the limit. If you say, hey guys, my father died of cancer 3 years ago, okay, that's something is a bit off in what you're saying. But if you just tell a cool story about something that happened to you or something that you realized or how you actually yourself discovered the problem, then that's something cool. And if you have to change things, it doesn't matter. Like, as I was saying, you're like a movie director, so you can change the scenario or you can rewrite the name of someone. You know, I actually gave this advice to a guy. We're doing this pitch event contest called Une Idée in France. It's like people from entrepreneurs from the suburbs, so they're not used to like the very Parisian investors. And the guy was starting his pitch by, hey, my uncle's nephew's cousin had this problem, and actually it was not even his uncle's nephew's cousin, but it was the uncle's nephew's cousin of his co-founder. So it's like really complicated stuff. And I'm like, no, but just assume it's your uncle. But yeah, but it's not my uncle. My co-founder will be pissed. We don't care. You're just telling a story to the audience. They don't care if it's true or not. They want to spend a good moment with you and understand what your company does. If it's your uncle or whatever, doesn't really matter. So you can rewrite stuff in order to make it look more appealing in the story that you're telling, or you can just make it up. Doesn't really matter, but don't cross the awkward line. Yes. Can I remember the one best pitch that I ever received? Yes, I can. First of all, I was hungover, so perhaps my sense were a bit blurry. It was a guy. I had a one-on-one meeting, and I was just sitting there, and this guy knew his pitch so well, and he knew precisely what question I was having. And before I could actually say anything, he told me, at this moment, you're probably wondering why we're doing this and not this. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to tell you. We're doing this because, you see, this is what's going on in the market, and this is how you tackle those people. And the guy just had the answer to every question that I could possibly have. He mastered his pitch really well. When he saw that I was understanding what was happening in the market, he just like skipped through the slides and went directly to what was relevant for me. And it was probably the most amazing pitch that I've ever received. So it's Gauthier from Perligo Coucou, if you're watching the video. But yeah, that's probably one of the most amazing pitch I've ever seen. All right. Thank you very much.
You're la famille.